Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. Today we have the awesome Dr. Yasin with us. Hi, Dr. Yasin, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you, and thanks again for coming along to the show, sharing your story, your expertise, and your views with the listeners. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about where you're from, what you do, and yeah, a little bit more about you?
Yes, so I'm Yasin from Leicester. I've lived in Leicester all my life.
Yeah,
I run a recording studio here, a small record label. I manage some artists that are based in Leicester, and then I also do some education and community work. So I do a little bit of teaching with the local university, teaching first year music production and music tech students. And we also do events, open mic nights. We've got a little festival called Brewbeat. We've got the Leicester Music Conference. I've just set up the Leicester Music Board as well.
awesome.
So yeah, do a lot. We do a lot. It's all kind of based around trying to help people get a foot on the ladder to get into the music business, really.
That's really, really good, and thank you for all the work you do. And you're based up in Leicester, right? So, how is the Leicester music scene doing at the moment? And you've put so much hard work and dedication into making Leicester more inclusive and putting Leicester back on the map. So, tell us a little bit more about that and how that's going.
So yeah, so Leicester's it's a weird city. It's kind of a big and small city at the same time. So it's like we have we have like music, but certain bits do better than others. So like club nights and drum and bass events generally do quite well. We have a lot of like kind of Indian live music, but there's we kind of missed out on a lot of the touring stuff. There's not much music business infrastructure here, so it's kind of it's a hard city to kind of I
Make
suppose get to make it. You know, we still kind of need to be coming into London or kind of doing meeting other people and getting bigger. So yeah, it's probably the best it's been as in like there's more collaboration and there's people trying to make things happen. You know, so we're really trying to now grow it. We're trying to get more people on the same page. So I feel like it's an exciting time, but it's also still, like really underfunded. It's still, kind of on the outliers, so it's still a struggle.
And there's a lot of talent coming from Leicester. So tell us a little bit more about the music that's coming from Leicester at the moment and how we can support underrepresented talent from Leicester.
So yeah, like I said, there's loads of talented artists coming out of Leicester, and Leicester is it's a really diverse city. I think it's the most diverse city in the country, So it's a real melting pot of like different faiths, religions, people, genres, But we've got some people that are doing well, that people will know about, like Mahalia and Kasabian, and people like that. But then we've also got artists coming through like Queen Mills and Saint, where we're kind of on that they're bubbling as well and kind of getting there. And then we've got some bands that are doing well now. And we've also obviously got all the artists that I'm working with. Some of them are now getting kind of starting to cut through and get bigger numbers and bigger gigs. And so I think it's a lot of it. I think is just about, I suppose, checking for new music. 'Cause I think it's really easy to kind of just listen to the artist you listen to or what pops up on your radar. So I think maybe it's just a little bit about maybe looking at who's out there and checking what sort of music there is. We have a big South Asian population as well, so we do a lot of work with like Punjabi artists, all different types of artists. So yeah, there's loads of talent. We've just got to give it a bit more of a platform.
That's it. And the infrastructure is not quite there yet, but you're helping to do that and build that back up. So, what kind of infrastructures do up and coming talent need, such as venues and stuff like that? What more can we be doing in Leicester?
So I think it's kind of a mix. So I think we're for emerging artists, like venues, I think we're all right. It's more the bigger artists that we might struggle. We know people who are touring, but
Yeah.
Leicester-wise, there's loads of venues, there's loads of open mics, so it's really easy to get that first experience, But when it comes to more like there's not really like labels and managers and kind of publishers, and there's a few, but it's very small.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of for me that's what like building the infrastructure is about. I suppose trying to help the next generation of managers and label owners, and also bringing in the industry to like help educate people on how to get started, and also like how do we access the money? Where does the money come from? Like is it from funding? Is it from investments? Is it from selling bits of music and getting investments? Or or fundraise. There's so many different ways to do it. But I think a lot of it is, I suppose, educating people on the different ways to doing it, and then also, I suppose a lot of it as well is I think is the mental side. You know, being able to work with people and because I feel like you have to be really patient, really persistent, and really passionate. You know, it might take 5, 10, 15 years, you know, and a lot of people, you know, they'll put some music out, it don't get big numbers, and then, you know, they'll stop promoting it and they'll go back into the show. And, you know, like I think there's a big struggle with, you know, the content and the social media and the numbers, and it's so competitive. So I think a lot of it is also about, you know, having music therapists, having people who have been there and done it so that people can I suppose, know what it really takes and have that guidance to help get on there.
Really helps. And thank you for sharing that with us, Yassine. And you've been doing music now for a little while. So how long have you actively been in the music industry?
So I started in 2010 doing community music programs. So I was on a community music program when I was a teenager. And then when I decided to start a business, I kind of based it around my friends that were all carried on in music, but no one was really doing much with it. So one of my mates was a producer, one was an engineer, one was a DJ. We used to do free parties and stuff like that. But I was like, this is great, but no one's making no money. Like, let's build a business around it. So we started off with a community interest company going into libraries and community centres. We did that a few, but then we'd do a 7 week course and then we'd do a little event for them so that they could perform what the music that we'd made. And then I'd say, who do you want to support? And luckily, a lot of the time I knew the people that wanted to support. So then I ended up doing kind of putting on events for the people that were on the projects.
Mm.
And then I did that for a year. And then I got the chance to take on a recording studio. Because back then I'm driving around with all the speakers in the boot, you know, a bit of a nightmare. So I was like, we need a bass. And like, luckily it just fell into my lap, which was basically the building that I run is called HQ. It used to be called 5HQ, which was a record store. And I used to be a flyer boy for them in the early 90s. I used to do it in exchange for free tickets. And I managed to get this building and that was like it was all soundproofed and you know it was ready to go. So we basically just put the equipment in it and then I had a recording studio and that was like 2010, 2011. And then at the same time, I ended up taking on a nightclub because then I wanted somewhere that people could also do rehearsals. We could leave everything set up. So I ended up with a nightclub and a recording studio. And I did them both for about 4 or 5 years. But it was a lot trying to juggle basically two full-time jobs and a family.
Bless
So
you.
I moved on from the club and then I started focusing more on the studio. And then I realized there was so much talent, and I was like, "Where's all this music going?" And there was SoundCloud or YouTube. I was like, what about Spotify and Apple, and you know, like, what about monetizing it?
Yeah.
So then I realized no one was really doing that much. This was like 2016. So 2017, I set up a small label and I said, "Well, look, we'll just do it ourselves then," because we didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was kind of when I got, I suppose, more into the industry side. So then I kind of joined like AIM and MMF and BPI and all the different trade bodies so I could just learn as much about everything as possible. And through COVID, I realized I could get in a room with anybody, you know, like because it was Zoom, you know, like oh, I can just talk to this person and that
Yeah.
person and look, yeah, and that's what I learned loads through that time. So I kind of from probably 2017 was when we put our first kind of compilation release out. And then ever since, I've just been kind of trying to learn more and just grow it every year, and then also try and help other people get involved. You know, because I don't just want it to be me. I want it to be a scene. I want it to be loads of labels, loads of managers, loads of people pushing it forward.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And what kind of challenges and barriers that you've obviously been in the industry since 2010? So it's obviously changed. And coming into the industry and obviously getting to where you are now, what kind of challenges and barriers have you faced and overcome to get to where you are?
So I think a lot of the barriers I've faced, I think, are being location based,
Yeah.
and a lot of the barriers are financial based. You know, because I kind of feel like there's a real big thing about the industry needing more people from working class and diverse backgrounds, and but then I also find that the system was just felt like it's been built by white middle class people for white middle class people.
Yes.
So it kind of meant like it kind of just felt like a lot of the things, a lot of the opportunities, you can only access them if you can afford to get to the places, buy the tickets, like if you can afford to not work full time so that you can actually follow music, So I think it's really, I suppose it's really hard to compete with, I suppose, people as well that have got budgets and backing, when you're small, independent, and people are, oh, don't release money in music if you've not got marketing budgets. Well, we wouldn't put anything out for years then, like, so I kind of just decided I can't fix it and definitely not overnight, but maybe I'm just going to do things in my own way and I'll just feel like I'm just going to keep putting out music relentlessly until it starts hitting and kind of building a catalog so that kind of more of a build it and they will come mentality because I kind of felt like it was just hard to penetrate certain circles. It was hard to, again, like I say, being in Leicester, it's like trying to get people to come to see you in Leicester is a myth, even though it's only an hour from London.
Yeah.
Like you've got to go to them, and you've got to. So, and again, and everything I just felt like everything costs so much money that always felt like the biggest barrier to me, the financial side.
Definitely, I totally understand that. And obviously, there's certain people that are living around the country that might be struggling with the same kind of things. They might want to set up something that you've already set up. What kind of advice would you give to them on how to do so, or what could they do?
So what I did when I first started, I kind of looked at most cities have like some kind of organizations that are set up to help people like set up social enterprises, or they have like people who understand funding and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so my advice would be to reach out to find out who are the organizations in your city that help those people. Also, like who are the grassroots organizations who work with people in your genre or they're in your locality. So I kind of feel like a lot of the time people look a little bit too high in the beginning, where it's kind of like let's look a bit closer to home. Like who is it from your city that's got a little bit of success or is popping a little bit, and how did they do it? Who did they work with, and I feel like don't be scared to ask people. I feel like most people like talking about themselves, most people like giving advice, so it's kind of like don't be scared to ask, and there's no stupid questions. So I think sometimes it's just about getting started, but my advice is though, like, as always, you've got to like, don't expect anything overnight though, because like I think it took me a year to get my first business properly set up, and then it probably took another 6 months to actually get any funding in to do anything. So, and there was a lot of times in my career I've had to either go back on universal credit or I've had to go and get a sideline part-time job or work for myself and work for some other people, So it's very difficult in this. But I also say if it was easy, everyone would do it, So it kind of is. It's not supposed to be easy, but there is people who can help.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing I was going to say to you is what are your thoughts and feelings at the moment around equity, diversity, and inclusion? Do you think we're doing a good job of that?
If I'm honest, I kind of feel like a lot of people talk a good job in it, and I feel like there's a lot of talk around it, and I feel like sometimes it feels a little bit
Performative?
controversial, but a bit like virtuous, or like people doing it because they feel like they need to do it, but not necessarily actively necessarily changing things. And I feel like it's a bit of I feel the same around like the whole environmentalism thing as well. I think a lot of it is kind of people that they're doing things to tick boxes and but they're still kind of working with the same way. Nothing that
Yeah.
much has changed. So like, I feel like it's better than it was because at least it's a conversation now, and at least people are talking about it, But I feel like there's definitely still a long way to go. And sometimes I feel like it's one step forward, two steps back, and it's yeah.
Balance, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is, and it's hard to find the balance,
Yeah.
But I think I feel like the best thing about it is that there's now people like yourself who feel like empowered enough to be able to put it on people, and like actually push for the, push the fight the fight, So I feel like there's a long way to go, but I feel like yeah, at least the ball's rolling, So
And I think it's also about collaboration and inspiration. Now, I look at you and you inspire me because you've also done the same thing. You stick up for your community, you stand up and you support other people. How important has collaboration been to you to get to where you are right now?
Oh, massively important. And I think, like my mentality is like if you're doing stuff on your own, like you've only ever got a certain audience, you've only ever got a certain network, certain resources.
Yeah.
So for me, it's kind of really important to tap into it, especially people who are further ahead than me, bigger than me, like, and again, I'm putting pressure on them. I'm like, well, look, if you've got all these facilities and all this resource, why can't we tap into it? Why are you not helping us when we're the people that, because a lot of the time people are happy to take your pictures and your case studies and,
Yeah.
like when things are shiny, but not really helping you to do that, and it's like, if you want to share the rewards, and be part of the story, like, we can do it together. And
Yes.
I think with the music conference, that's why with that that's a massive collaboration of like educational colleges, universities, local government, and then industry heads, and it's the same with the board because I know the stuff I want to do is bigger than me. I can't do that on my own, and I need people who are ahead of me and also potentially more academic than me, maybe more connected than me, like maybe more have more financial backing than me. So I kind of feel like, yeah, if you try and I think this used to be a problem in Leicester. I think it was a little bit too competitive.
Right.
Everyone's like, these are my people, this is
Yeah.
my event, this is my, and it's like, no, look, this is ours and it's for all of us, like, and it's like, that's why you don't just have one producer, have producers, go to studios, like go to all the events, not just one event, not just one venue. And I think the other good thing about collaboration is you never know where it's going to take you. So a lot of small collaborations that at the time didn't necessarily go anywhere. Years later, those have actually then, yeah, it's kind of like planting seeds, and I think the more people you collaborate with, the more people will talk about what you're doing, who know what you're doing, so it means it's going to just create more opportunities for everybody.
Yeah. Great. And if you had your way, what would you like to see improve in the next few years around equity, diversity, inclusion? What could we do better?
So I think there's quite a lot of things that we need to do. I think we need to really try and find a way to break down some of the financial barriers. I feel like creatives and music industry. I feel like we need like creative rail cards, for instance. Like I know like I struggle to go to London as much as I want to just because it's so expensive. And I feel like so even if just something as simple as travel is a restriction, we need to find ways how can we reduce these barriers, and like events, I feel like it needs to be subsidized for people from low income and I feel like a lot of things also need to be reworked at how things are set out, so if we're looking at funding, it's still really hard to write a funding bit for most funders, so it's people who are really academic or that can pay a bid writer, and that's again, you're not getting people from diverse and working class backgrounds because they don't even know how to fill the form in properly. English might not even be their first language, so it's
You know?
yeah, it's daunting, it's like looking at it. So I feel like we need to demystify a lot of stuff and it needs to be simplified. Same with even like when you look at rights and royalties and, like PPL and, like it's a job in itself,
Yeah.
just registering everything.
Yeah.
And like, then you might, like, and especially in the beginning where the rewards are so tiny, it's
Mhm.
like everything there needs to be ways of streamlining things, making things like a bit more foolproof, but also more people that are actually there to actually help people who are in these, from these. If you want to help these people, we need someone who can actually go in and say, right, we're going to do a session on this. Right, I'm going to sit with you and we'll go through that, and really,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of give that, I suppose, like that more like mentorship and that, like here's this is how you do it and that proof of concept, but then now let's do it, and I think we have very little of that. And obviously, with like the funding cuts all over the place, we're even losing, like youth clubs and grassroots. And a lot of the time, this was the breeding ground originally for people from different communities. It's like that was kind of where the starting point was. So I kind of feel like it needs to be going like it's a big thing. This is part of the thing why with the Leicester Music Board, I'm looking at kind of a 15, 20-year strategy where like we need to be working with the people who are teaching from primary school to then to senior school, then to college, then to uni, all the different pathways. So it's simple, it's understandable, and that it's actually fit for purpose so that more people can access it.
Brilliant. I haven't heard that before. And that really makes a lot of sense, to be honest, because it would help people in those creative industries to understand how it works and have a better understanding of applying and who to apply to. Extremely important. So tell us more, Yasin, on the Leicester Music Conference, because I know that's coming up soon.
Yeah, so the music conference, that's like, I set that up last year. Again, and like I said, I was struggling to get the industry people to come to Leicester. And I also know that going to conferences is again quite expensive. You know, you've got to go to like, London, Leeds, Manchester, wherever they are, generally not in the East Midlands.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'm just going to set up my own conference and I'm going to make it heavily subsidized and I'm going to get all the industry. So all the industry contacts I made over COVID times are basically, is that all right? You need to come to Leicester, like you're going to put you on a panel. And then obviously the good thing about it is all the organisations kind of need to be showing some support for the region. So I'm like, look, you can tick your box, your CSR box or your EDI box, whatever you need to do because you're in the regions and you're supporting us. So I did the first one last year and it kind of exceeded all expectations. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, you came, which was amazing. So then we decided, right, let's make it bigger and better. So this year we've done it as 2 days. So one of the days is for general public, which is Friday the 28th, which you'll be there again. And then the day before is a young people's day. So I've done one specifically for 14 to 18 year olds. And that's going to be like schools bringing groups of music students, parents bringing their kids. And that's again, so that we can start. So we're still going to have all the industry. They're going to have industry UK music and Ableton and all loads of industry professionals, artists, producers, but kind of explaining to them from this age, like about potentially income streams, entrepreneurship, different ways of networking and collaborating, so that then by the time they're coming to the 18 plus one, they're already know what they're doing, they know who to go and network with, what the opportunities are that they're looking for. And this time we're going to have the music in 2 rooms. So we've got 2 events, the BBC Introducing event, and then we've got an event with UMC Management, which is going to be kind of like more like funk and soul and jazz. And so yeah, and then that's kind of become my baby now. So at the minute, that's all I'm working on. Well, not all I'm working on, but the main thing that's taken up my headspace. But yeah, that's going to be February, and then the plan is then to keep growing that year on year to become like kind of like a great escape, but for Leicester. So where we've got the education and the delegates and the networking, but we've got multi-genres. We've got all the venues doing different events. So next year we'll then be looking to do more days and more venues. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's exciting.
Super proud of you. Well done, because it was absolutely awesome. And I would also like to say to you, I think it's taken you a lot of hard work and dedication. And again, you're not just doing this for yourself, you're doing this for community and for Leicester. So from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you, and thank you for inviting us along and for supporting me too in the work that I do. So it's really, really important. And I just want to ask you, like, being in the music industry, has it affected your mental health? And have you ever had to deal with discrimination or stigma?
Yeah, I would say mental health, definitely. I think, like especially in the early days, I think like before my skin got so thick, because I felt like a lot of people would blow smoke up your ass, to be honest. Like there was a lot of stuff where, like my very first release, like we ended up with the majors coming round and we ended up with meetings and taking artists to major labels and we got a bit excited and then, but then after that, the next thing didn't do as well, the next thing, and it was kind of like, oh, and I noticed the same thing what I was talking about with an artist with a release. It's the same as a label owner or a manager, like every win is great, but well, it's not even a loss, but if something doesn't do as well as you want it to, so you've made this, amazing piece of art, this amazing song that you think's a hit, and then it kind of goes out and it don't really get no love, and then it gets less than 1,000 views, and then it's kind of like it's a bit of a kind of knocks the wind out of your sails a bit. And I think in the beginning, and again, people often would comment and be, "Oh, this is amazing what you're doing. We're going to help you do this. We're going to take you to LA. We're going to invest this. We're going to do that." And I used to get really excited. And then when it didn't happen, again, I'd be like really disappointed. And I'm like, oh, like, so I feel like the constant disappointment, combined with the uphill struggle of kind of feeling like, well, I'm in this industry, but it's kind of like, is it really for me? Because there's not really many people like me in it, who talk like me or with a name like me or that are from where I'm from, So I don't feel like I didn't feel like I was actively discriminated against, but I also kind of knew that I don't know if this is not really built for me, because I've not got the backing or the connects, and it can be a little bit clicky as well, So you can kind of know that certain people, and the further I go, I understand some of that is clicky and some of that is trusted sources, Okay, well, they've been working with them for years, they do that, so it's kind of a hard nut to crack, but I feel like definitely being so far out of it, it kind of felt like I'm in it, but I'm quite far removed. I always used to say like, oh yeah, I work in music, but I'm not a musician. And, I kind of talked down about what I was doing. Whereas now I think I've been doing it long enough now and I own my space. I'm like, yeah, this is what we do. This is what we're doing. This is where we're going. And then I feel like people then started, I suppose, giving me more respect, maybe because I'm giving myself more respect, and I'm like, so it's, yeah, but mental health, it's been like even now, like, and I class myself as, I'm a strong person, I've got a strong-minded, strong-willed, but even now, it's obviously there's ups and downs and the stuff that's out of your control, and like nobody can be good all the time, so. I think it is a very mentally demanding industry, Same for my artists, even sometimes I might be okay,
Yeah.
but then seeing one of my artists going through stuff, that affects me as well. Or,
No,
like when a relationship comes to an end, now you've given up and it's, like, so that can affect, or, knowing that sometimes you've got to have an awkward conversation, no, I'm going to have to get rid of somebody because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So there's so many, I think, triggers, and obviously it's such a, and I think I feel like in music, I would say literally 9 out of 10 people who I work with struggle with mental health, some kind of mental health problems. And at the early levels, I'd say there's a massive percentage that are actively dealing with anxiety, with depression, and other things. And there's a lot of people on the spectrum as well, within music, because we're all creatives and dyslexia and, but, like low level, or there's just so many different things that I think, yeah, and that's one of the things that we try and cover in the conference as well, bringing in music therapists and music mind matters, and, what ways can we help support people mental health for us and for them, basically. So, yeah, it's an ongoing battle.
yeah. And I really like the fact that you're touching on the younger children now, because there's been massive cuts to the music education budgets. And I started my love for music at a very young age when I was at first school, because I think that solidified my passion for music. So how important do you think it is that we start restoring some of these budgets for music education and for creatives?
I think it's massively important, and I think, like England has always been like a world leader in music as well, and it's obviously it's getting less and less because like we've not got the same level of musicians necessarily coming out, and things are like there's not been that same level of support. And again, it's like I say, that there's a lot of people with these opportunities, they're not even getting them, or they're getting it, but only for such a short time, they don't get a chance to build on it.
Mhm.
So it kind of just feels like, and again, it's like if they're getting less in school, and then there's less after school clubs, there's less disposable income to pay for these things anyway. It kind of, again, it just makes it all for the haves and the have-nots, which is only going to exasperate the whole issue of, the lack of working class and diverse. Yeah, because where is it? We can't access that, and that's why you'll see the kids often that are doing the best have got the most supportive parents who have got them, they've got the money for the after school clubs and for the tutors and um, for the instruments and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, like everyone else has not got that luxury. So if they can't at least get it at school, like, that means you might just get it from nowhere. So it might never ever be even an option or even a thought. So I think that is a massive thing that we need to start plugging them. I feel like it's a real false economy as well. Like we're going to save some money by cutting something creative that these people are going to be putting loads of money back into the system with their creative talents, and that's what makes cities proud. That's what increases tourism and the nighttime economy and all these things. I feel like, yeah, and the culture. So it's like, well, we need this because otherwise everybody's just going to be stuck on phones and iPads and social media rather than actually having meaningful, creative, like communities where they can actually turn that into something. So that's something again that we're really pushing for. And how can we create more opportunities? How can we, like I say again, and share resources? I always say where there's a will, there's a way. So like they can find money for war, they can find money to pay for whatever they want to pay for. Like let's find some money to pay for the
Invest in.
creative. Exactly. Yeah, invest in the future.
Yasin, we've got 5 minutes left. Is there any major wins or successes you would like to share with us? And how could the listeners connect with you, find out more about the work you do, and also connect if they want to connect, collaborate?
So wins is a weird one because obviously like well, as soon as you get something, you want something more. So it's kind of like an ever-changing goal. So
Yeah.
I feel like for me, like every song we put out feels like a win. Every artist we sign, every event I feel like everything feels like a win because it's all part of a
Sure.
bigger thing. It's part of a bigger mission. I think the Leicester Music Board is a big win because I think that's it's a really powerful board of people that I've managed to put together, and I think we're a bit ahead of the curve. There's a couple, but not many. So there's a lot of cities are going to be looking to do this. Where we're already now ahead of the game. We're already doing stuff. We started a mapping exercise, which is great. So we're going to map the local music economy and all the venues and all that kind of stuff. So that's a real big win. Um, and what was the other bit? Oh, how can people connect and find out more? Uh, so I've got a website. I've got two websites. I've got one called hqcan.org, and that's like more the community focused side. I've got one that's called hqrecording.co.uk, and that one's for the studio, and that has a bit about the artists and stuff. I'm also on all socials as just at HQ Recording, so that's where people can come up to date with we've got the link tree on there that takes you to all the releases and all the videos and everything. And then on LinkedIn, I'm just Dr. Yasin El Ashrafi. And yeah, we're everywhere.
If anyone wants any tickets for Leicester Music Conference, where could they find those?
So the website for that is leicestermusicconference.co.uk. And basically, if you search Leicester Music Conference, it'll come up. So I've just kept it really simple. Is what it says on the tin, Music Conference in Leicester. And they're really cheap as well. Like I say, it's heavily subsidised. It's only £10 for a full conference ticket. £15 includes the BBC introducing event as well after. So it's cheap as chips. We're in the centre of Leicester, not too far from the train station. So it's going to be a great day. We're going to have loads. We've got so much happening. So if anyone who's close enough, I'd definitely advise getting a ticket and coming down.
Well, I'll make sure this episode's out a week at least before the conference. So hopefully, please go and buy some tickets, listeners. Do come along and support the work that Yasin's doing. And thanks ever so much for coming along today, sharing your expertise, your story, and your time. Really, very much appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Speak to you soon.
Cheers. Bye.